It's a new year, so I might post a few more videos of various topics. Firstly, I'm going to touch on something that I've had a strong interest in for a while is Manchester United, and specifically under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the progress, and just a review of that really. Something I'd probably wanted to post for a while. But obviously been ups and downs. A few points that maybe people have missed out on, particularly his history as a coach. He started off as after he's retired, coaching the United reserve teams, youth teams. He actually had a pretty good record of that. He won the reserve team Premier League and the North Reserve Premier League, and also the Lancashire, I think it's Lancashire Cup, and another local Manchester-based cup. So he virtually won everything as a Manchester United reserve team manager, which not many people really talk about, and that should be a good grounding for his development as a future Manchester United manager. Obviously, the likes of Guardiola and Zidane, they came through the system at Madrid and Barcelona in a similar way, where they managed the reserve teams, had success, and then were promoted onto the first team manager. And obviously, they're both steeped in the history of the club, those two clubs. So Solskjaer had a similar route. People seem to not really talk about that. It's quite important, really. If you look at trying to develop a manager in the long term, it's important that they've sort of gone that route and that they know the club, and it's something that's not really discussed. Obviously, after that, he went onto Molde, and he did win the league with Molde in Norway, and obviously another environment he was well familiar with. Obviously, he came from there as a player. Then he went to Cardiff, and obviously that was the area of his career as a coach which didn't really go as well as he wanted to, and they got relegated. He's probably not used to that kind of situation where he's in the bottom half of the table. As a player, he's always encountered situations where he's winning things, and then they had a relegation fight, they got relegated, and obviously it didn't go too well for him. So obviously he might have learned a lot of stuff there, which hopefully in the long term would develop as a coach. Then he went back to Molde, and then obviously appointed as United's manager as interim initially. So that's sort of the history of him as a coach, which had ups and downs, but you're not all negative. Lots of positives. And obviously his first stint as United manager as interim, he did really well, and then as soon as he appointed full time, he basically dropped off. And now we're in a situation where they're having the kind of thing you expect from a young team and with young coaches, in a very tough league, that they win a few matches, then there's a couple of poor performances and they drop off again. So it's one of those. Another factor as well, I would say, would be to do with the Glazers' running of the club. The Glazers own an American football team as well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, their record in the last 15 years has been pretty poor, well, worse than poor. They have basically got to the playoffs, the Bucs, once in 14 seasons, which is a very poor record. So if you look at it from the perspective of they're the people who are running your organisation, say Manchester United, and they are running an NFL franchise that is very unsuccessful, then that doesn't really inspire much confidence. Whereas Liverpool have Family Sports, who run the Boston Red Sox, who are quite a successful franchise and quite a prominent franchise, whereas the Bucs are not really very well known in terms of winning trophies at all. They did win the Super Bowl early 2000s, but since then they've done absolutely nothing. So that doesn't really sort of help Solskjaer or help think that they're making good decisions at board level, because a lot of people are blaming the Glazers and Woodward. And then obviously move on to Woodward, where you see that Woodward's definitely tied into Solskjaer as a manager, because you've seen he's appointed Moyes, Woodward has appointed Van Gaal, and he's appointed Mourinho, all of which he's sacked and has failed. So if he doesn't get this one right, it's not looking particularly good on his CV. And he probably sees himself a bit like Solskjaer, somebody who is a younger person who maybe deserves a chance to run or to be part of the higher management of a club like Manchester United. Obviously, Woodward's background was banking. So it's a bit of a tough one. He probably really wants Solskjaer to work, but at the moment, I said at the start of the season they'll probably be sixth with a cup semi-final, and that's looking pretty like what might actually happen. That's just the way it's gone so far this season. There've been ups and downs. The other thing, obviously, the development with having Pochettino and like Ancelotti obviously being available as well, that experienced managers available to be hired. Is available, and Pochettino did take Spurs from being where United are now, sort of sixth, getting close to cup finals, to basically taking the next step where he's getting cup finals, top four, and obviously didn't win anything, but the Premier League's pretty difficult league, and England's a tough place to go and win trophies. That's why I expect Pochettino to possibly go to Bayern next to win some trophies, and then maybe move on to Madrid. And the other final point about Solskjaer, he does have young coaches who he's working with in terms of Carrick and McKenna. He does have feeling as an assistant, but in the current sort of format of the Premier League, where there's so many great managers, trying to have a rebuild under a young manager doesn't really mean that you're going to be successful. It's so competitive, maybe more so than it's ever been, and so it's maybe the wrong year. And also, social media, you're under a lot more pressure than you would be maybe like 20 years ago. The pressure comes a lot quicker. You have a bad month, you're pretty much out, really. So it's a tough one. So a little bit of a review of United under Solskjaer. I mean, as I say, I can't really see him going much better than sixth and a cup run this season. And then is that really what United aspire to, where there's still like Allegri and Pochettino who are out there, who have done it, who have taken clubs, Allegri's won everything in Italy, to another level. So I'll have to wait and see. You sort of hope it works on a human level, but I'm not sure whether it will. And do need to strengthen the squad in January, especially midfield. And McTominay and Pogba both out. I mean, Matic is not the player he used to be. Fred is still fighting his way. So they need reinforcements in that area. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So let's see. Right, thanks very much. Cheers. Bye.